Are you ready to stop the self-sabotage and create the life you desire? Well, in order for that to happen, you need to break free from the bad beliefs that are holding your success hostage. You need to optimize the stress by turning it into extra energy for success. And those hurtful habits? Well, we need to give that pain a purpose for progress. Welcome to Stop the Self Sabotage and Create the Life You Desire podcast. How would you define beauty? What's the meaning of that word to you? You know, the best description I have ever heard is beauty is simply the externalization of inner harmony, where all parts of us are working together to express who we really are, not who we've been programmed and conditioned to be by circumstances in life that continued to hurt us. So this is the reason why we can look at a weed like a dandelion and actually see the beauty in it, because it is fully expressing who it is. Or what about looking into the eyes of someone who's older? Maybe by the external world standards, they're no longer beautiful. But yet when you look into their soul, you see something there that is absolutely magnificent. So do not confuse beauty with youthfulness. But yet, we have to deal with ugly truths every single day. And what is a truth? A truth is something that we've accepted as a belief. And a belief is subjective. It's all about us and how we operate in the world. And so when we look at ugly truths that we've accepted, if we look at the word ugly, it originally meant morally offensive. So there are definitely things in this world that are morally offensive, but you are not one of them. Yet there's a part of you that accepted that you weren't enough and you would never be enough. So that's what we're looking at today. True beauty versus the ugly truth. Because whatever you accepted as a belief about yourself, you accepted it at the age you were when you were programmed and conditioned for that truth. And so it's not the adult you that can reason, can analyze, and come up with better ideas. No, it's the younger you. Now, some people say, I'll be more beautiful when I lose a few pounds. No, you might be healthier, but you're not going to be more beautiful. Or how about life will be more beautiful when I have more money for fixing up my house or taking a vacation? No, life will be more prosperous, but it will not be more beautiful. So I want you to take a moment and think about some of the ugly truths that you've accepted. And I want you to see them as dried up, crumpled up leaves in your garden of growth. There was a time when I had a pretty large garden in our backyard, about 40 feet long. And you know what I discovered? I discovered that it could cost me about $100 to get a dozen tomatoes every year. And the squash, gave up on those because the squash bugs just kept sucking the life right out of them. The kubacha, though, grew really, really easy. But I discovered I could go to the produce section at the grocery store and buy it a whole lot cheaper than what I was growing it. But there was a time when I enjoyed the gardening, and during the fall, Drew would gather up the leaves in our yard and he'd mulch them all up, and then he'd lay them as a protective covering in the garden for the plants that would come back year after year, some of the flowers that we had in there. And then in the spring, I would pull back those leaves, and it was amazing how fertile the ground was underneath it. And always know it's a good sign when you pull it back and there's all sorts of worms running around all over the place. Well, I guess worms don't run, do they? Well, moving around. So I want you to think about your own internal garden of growth. And whatever you've accepted as the ugly truth is simply going to be a covering of leaves, and it's allowing the ground underneath to become very fertile, and it's ready for the seeds to be planted of the beauty that you're ready to experience in life. You being your very best. So if I were to give you an exercise. Now, I would say the optimal length of this exercise is 72 hours. For some of you, it may be 10 minutes, may be a challenge. But for anywhere from 10 minutes to 72 hours, I would love for you to start listing everything that is beautiful about you. And remember, the true meaning of beauty is simply the externalization of inner harmony. What is your magnificence, and how do you bring it to the world? When I was younger, I loved to read. Well, how is that a blessing now? Because the word blessing, if we look at it in its original form, means to know the truth. So, the ugly truth was that whenever I was a kid, I would hide in my books because I was painfully shy. Well, now it's beautiful that I'm able to use this skill set of being focused and being able to scan books rapidly, because then I find the material, the psychological material that I'm going to use to assist you for your next level of revelation. Okay. The fact that I was painfully shy. Why was I painfully shy? Because I learned at a very young age how to read people, because I grew up in a household that was abusive. So you needed to read the environment really quick to know what to do. Well, how can I use that now? Whenever I'm working with you privately, whether it's in person or it's virtual, I can pick up real quick on what you're not saying. I can read the unspoken and then bring it to the light and say, okay, well, what about this? Am I getting this right? Now, what about you? Look at the times when you accepted the ugly truth, but that ugly truth is now morally offensive to who you really are. So you got to turn it around. The law of polarity says everything is created as a whole. So if you accepted it as a belief that you were broken, that you were flawed, and you needed to be fixed, well, what's on the other side of that? Peace. And not peace the way the world wants to give it to you. Peace the way your higher power wants you to experience it, which means there's nothing flawed and there's nothing broken about you. You are absolutely magnificent and brilliant. So start looking at those ugly truths and use the law of polarity and say, no, there's the seed of my beauty in this. And then what is it that you need to do to allow it to grow? It's time to pull back the covering of those crumpled up, dried up old leaves. It's time to allow your garden to be nourished so it can flourish. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of ways that I can assist you on this. The first one is you can participate in a focus group with me, about 45 minutes of your time, maybe with just a few other of my previous clients, where I'm going to ask you some questions to get your input on products and programs that I can be putting together this fall to assist you. See, the world has changed, and I'm not quite sure what it is that I should be offering you that is going to bring you out at your very best. I want your input on that. And if you choose to do that with me, then I'm going to have a free ticket to my event, Maximum Mindset for Health, Wealth, and Happiness, because I value the time that you give me. So I'm going to gift you a ticket. Now, if you decide you don't want to do that and you would just prefer to register for that event, go to drewdawnferguson.com/2021. And you also want to be on the lookout over the next few days because two other dates are going to be added to it. There's a date right now for July. There's going to be an August date and a September date that's also going to come about for that workshop. Okay. So those are the two ways that you can join me, where I'm going to give you the same process that I use whenever I work with my clients personally to upgrade their beliefs into beauty. So until we get together again, if you're struggling to believe in yourself, that's okay. Borrow my belief in you until you can develop your own.